Welcome, everyone. Yes, it has been a little bit of a while. Well, let me turn my volume off here. Jeez. Think I'd learned the. Anyway, hope everybody's doing okay. Yeah, because what we had? We had the Super Bowl on Sunday, and then the previous Sunday was 30th anniversary for Danielle and me. So hey, Derek, Kim, Alan, Donna, Scott, Kelly. Let's see what else we got here. I think I named everybody. All right, I'm assuming that you can see me and hear me, so I will not worry about that. Uh, how many of you have this book, The Revenant of Rebecca Pascal by David Barker and W.H. Pugmire? Last time I looked, this little book is very hard to find. And I don't believe it's available on Kindle either. So this book, but if you ever get a chance, this is just rich in atmosphere from Willem and from David Barker. Um, and bonus, I have a signed copy from Willem to my beloved buddy Mike W.H. Pugmire. And if that wasn't enough, this book came out in 2014. Wow. Has it really been that long? Dedication. This book is dedicated to Mike Davis and the Lovecraft E-zine, DB and WHP. So, yeah, it's near to my heart, but it's a damn good novella. On top of that, in Witch Haunted Arkham, a restless spirit takes possession of an innocent woman and wreaks havoc to all who encounter her. Inspired in part by H.P. Lovecraft's The Thing on the Doorstep, The Revenant of Rebecca Pascal takes you to ghostly houses. That's my water, Jupiter. Wow, if it's not my sandwich, it's my water you want. Takes you to ghostly houses and sinister Arkham burying grounds, where alchemy and madness join forces with a demonic entity aroused from beyond the wall of sleep. You Lovecraft fans will recognize that as a title of a short story, Beyond the Wall of Sleep. But be warned, to learn these secrets of the worm is to have one's sanity infected. It's a fun book. It's a very atmospheric book. So I'm still working on that 5 noir novels, Darren, from him. So anyway, I do have a signed copy of this also, Over the Darkening Fields by Scott Thomas. And someday, I will have that in Kindle version too. Someday, Scott, before we're in our graves. All right, I'm trying to remember. I know I read Winter Census, of course, and Halloween Tea the last time I read from this book. I'm trying to remember if I read any other stories so that I don't read them twice. Did I read The House of Murals, Scott? I don't think I did. And then, I mean, if you don't have this, you really should pick it up. Really, seriously. I'm not making any money off of that. It's just a damn good book. All right. The Moon in the Gutter. Oh, yeah, the Goodest one. Yes. Okay, I remember now. August Ritual I read, but not Murals. The title is Over the Darkening Fields. You know, you can probably find secondhand copies on Amazon or wherever. But very atmospheric, much like The Revenant of Rebecca Pascal. Hey, this may be the shortest story in the book. Over the Darkening Fields, yes. Bag of Hell. What do you have in that bag? Oh, nothing, just a little hell. That's not in the story, that's just me. All right. Finally, I had to get him off of this chair to do this for you guys tonight. And he finally realized after I put him on it that I have the, yep, I'm talking about you, that I have the um, heated, oh shit, I can't think tonight. Um, anyway, it's heated over there and he's really enjoying it. I do hate fibro fog. All right. When old Tyler finished raking the leaves for his neighbor, he marched up onto the porch and knelt beside the faded young woman seated in a rocking chair. "So, Emma, how's your baby boy?" Tyler asked. Emma stared across the lawn into the gray wood beyond. Tyler lit a cigarette. "You know, I have seen that both ways. Lit always seems more natural, but like in a lot of Laird's stories, it's lighted. Anyway, you don't just get the story, you get my commentary." Tyler lit a cigarette. "Did they find out what that tumor thing was?" the man asked, squinting as he exhaled smoke. "A bag of hell," Emma stated numbly. "Excuse me?" "I cut it out. It's in the kitchen sink right now. Listen. You can hear it growling." Tyler shifted uncomfortably. He looked to the screen door and the dim room beyond it, straining to hear. He was not sure whether that was or was not growling coming from the kitchen. "You mean your boy's dead?" Emma nodded and pointed to the woods. "I put him out there," the woman said. Tyler strained his old eyes, but saw only the tangled strata of branches and the fluttering black of agitated crows, and something like a wasp's nest, bloated and gray, high in the leafless limbs. They were quiet for a time. The wind came, and a rocker creaked, and something like drowning thunder sounded behind the screen door. "Would you care to stay for dinner, Tyler?" Emma said, at last. "I made some nice hot soup, hotter than hell." Tyler scrunched his cigarette out on the battered porch and rose, tipping his cap. No thank you, Emma. I think I better be getting home to feed the dogs." The man moved quickly to the path that led him away from Emma's house. He resisted the urge to look back and lit another cigarette with trembling hands. The hungry voices of crows echoed in the darkening wood. The end. Uh, Now I'll tell you, I've never said this to Scott, but for such a short story, I don't know what the word count is, but this might even be flash fiction. But for such a short story, no matter what it's called, man, there is dread in the first few paragraphs, just right away. Yeah, very creepy. All right, let's see what else we got here. Let's see here. Oh, da, 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 da. Do you? And let me know if you have a request, Scott. Otherwise, I'm gonna There's one. I don't think I've read this one ever. I mean, I have, but not aloud. Did I read Thin Walls? I think I did read Thin Walls, actually. I did. And, oh, here's another short one. One of my wife's favorite topics, dolls. That's sarcasm. What happened to... Okay, the doll. The doll. Another real short one. A young couple bought an old house, moldy Victorian gingerbread. There were November sepia woods about and networks of forgotten dirt paths. Distant hills like solidified waves of fog. The couple cleaned and painted, filled quiet rooms with saw shrieks and hammer blows. Slowly, rooms so dark for so long became bright. Between long hours of repair and restoration, the couple took chilly walks on tangled trails. One afternoon, with clouds like bruises dragging across the sky, they ventured into a little cemetery. It was neglected and quaint. Epitaphs peeked through dried grass, speaking both poetic and pious. It was calm, near meditative, ancient, until the wife called out, "Come look at this." At first, she had mistaken the doll for a real little girl. Antique, she was laying face down on the grave of a child who had died at the age of 7. Its arms, outstretched in front, were stuck into the soil. The wife pulled it loose. Porcelain head, clotted hair, faded dress, the smell of a musty attic. One eye was a hole. Cracks formed lightning jagged tear tracks. Muddy little lips. Within a few days, the snow began. The world received a gentle cleansing. A fireplace tossed orange highlights on the doll's chipped cheeks. She was propped up on a rocking chair in the living room. She watched the couple as they drank hot chocolate. It's not going to end well. Into the night, the snow accumulated. A wind moaning melancholy as flakes blew down like ghosts' locusts. Through drawn shades, it glowed bluish. The couple slept, tucked into a familiar bed in a now familiar room. Peaceful, snug hours passed, and at night's deepest, coldest point, glass breaking, a sudden harsh sound. Surely one of the old tree branches out front, weighted with snow, had snapped, hitting a window. The couple tossed on their robes and thumped downstairs. Into the living room, flicked on a light. The heavy door was ajar. The storm door's window was shattered from slamming shut. Jagged pieces lay on the damp carpet. The couple stared out through the remains of the fanged window at a trail of tiny footprints that headed off toward the old cemetery. Okay, first mistake, do not pull that doll's arms out of the ground. These guys got off lucky. Lucky. Quite lucky. Let's see here. We're gonna do another one, right? What time is it? It's not that late. Oh, it's only 9:15. Barely started. So anyway, yes, I missed you guys, but I'm here tonight. I'll be here Thursday night as usual. We will be here. The gang and I will be here on Sunday as per usual. Shouldn't be any gaps in any of the episodes for quite a while now. Um, have a author we're interviewing this Sunday, so that'll be fun. And yeah, so all right, what do we got here? Hey, I should read Winter Census. Kidding, Scott. Let's see here. The House of Murals. The House of Murals. I don't think I read it. Did I read it? Speak up if I read it, Scott. I think I read the August Ritual, but not the House of Murals. All right, good. Yeah, my wife would kill me if I read that story to her. She is not a doll fan. So, make this easier on myself. There we go. And my eyes are getting old. So let's zoom. Now instead of the book, I'm looking at the PDF you sent me, Scott, because I can read it easier. All right, the House of Murals. Unremarkable, virtually invisible from the street, the house crouched gray in its cover of maples. Hey, Spooky Dad. While the trees had given up their leaves, they grew dense, old and young alike, in an inadvertent wall and obscuring strata. The whole scene was conjured from November's dreary paint box, the house, the branches, the sky. Even the predicted snow would show gray in the shadows of this place. A man parked his car near the house and stood, evaluating it briefly, before making his approach. He was in harmony with the essence of the environment, thin and forgotten looking, his coat an inscrutable color, his pewter hair like shadows on snow. A small cardboard box was held under one arm, and the bones inside of it shifted as the man, a Mr. Benton, made his way up the steps to the door. He unlocked the house and entered. Etchaz. One light did little to disclose the interior, the light itself as cool as air. In short, the rooms were barren and neglected, the wooden floors scuffed, the corners webbed, and the ceilings decayed, their slats showing like flattened brown ribs through wounds in the plaster. The only features worthy of note were the cloth murals that draped the walls. Muddled by mildew, the distinguishable imagery was all but submerged in the very material that bore it. Medieval colors had soaked up the night dark of the rooms, and even on close inspection, Mr. Benton could not tell whether the art was the work of stitchery or paint. Hey, Suzanne. Illustrations from a children's book for the denizens of hell. That's what Benton thought of the murals. The figures were stylized, elongated, practically whimsical in character, and the animals stood upright, clad in incomplete suits of armor. But even the hares and horses belied a sinister aspect, thin and bloodless, leering from behind their mildewed drapes. The lengths of cloth obscured the windows. Weak November light offered a sickly radiance. It gave an undernourished glow to a blurry naked woman who hung from a tree by her hair, and made the scrawny dogs dangling alongside her seem compositions of birch. Despite the chill, Mr. Benton's skin dampened beneath his clothing. He paced the perimeter of one of the first floor rooms, steadying the musty art with the box under his arm and a penknife in his pocketed fist. He started at the sound of the box's contents shifting. "I've brought the bones of a sparrow," Mr. Benton said at last. November light belonged in the library as surely as Mr. Benton did. Dusk ushered the other humans away, relieving him of the task of externalization. He was left to his silence, his pages, his desk, and its tea stains, the comfort of the musty air. This is what would you say, a paragraph break from when said he brought the bones of a sparrow. That's hard. That's kind of hard. That's hard to convey in a narration because it's later. He's in a different place. Maybe that was obvious. I don't know. He made his rounds of the second and third floors before closing up. One set of footsteps. Many, many books. In the dimness and echoing marble of the lobby, Mr. Benton encountered the new assistant. Evelyn had an embarrassed smile when she turned, glancing up from a tall glass display case. "I was just leaving," she said. Her eyes lingered on him longer than he liked. "I was about to leave myself," Benton said. He hovered in the mouth of the stairwell. Evelyn turned back to the case. She reflected in the glass. Shy, pretty, plump, auburn hair on her shoulders. Dusty stuffed birds were ranked on shelves, their bases marked with tags of brittle yellow. "They're lovely," Evelyn noted, "but it's so sad." "Yes, ironic," Benton noticed. "I've always felt that taxidermy is something of a cruel art." The woman studied him. For a moment she was Mona Lisa. Mr. Benton hoped it wasn't fondness in her gaze. "Wasn't there a sparrow before?" Benton blinked. "It was infested with insects, so I threw it away." "Oh, well, I better let you lock up. Good night, Mr. Benton." He watched her walk away. She always borrowed a book to take home with her, he'd noted. He found that agreeable. Perhaps she had no one to go home to. While it was difficult for him to imagine a person wanting to go home to other humans, he felt something like a sadness for her. The man muttered a farewell, then locked the door behind Evelyn. He went to the display case and opened it. This time, he took a small, white owl. It was light in his hand, feathers and bones, and two glass eyes. Snow lent a false brightness to the outside of the house and gave the maples a stark, etched appearance. The flurries, as forecasted, had come with the dusk. A shattered whisper of white through the branches, a fine dust on the building's steps. While the masses congregated over the corpses and wishbones of their holiday turkeys, Mr. Benton walked a solitary circle in the room of dank murals. He no longer feared the place. He came here more and more often. Rather than deplete the library's display case of its birds, he had turned to other sources. He's sizing her up for a new project. That's good, Kim. Chickens from a butcher shop, a goose as well, a pigeon found in a gutter, a crow from a parking lot. Evelyn was taking too long with the returns, Mr. Benton thought. November had snowed its way into December, and it was Christmas Eve. The others had left early, taking the nuisance of their cheer with them. Earlier, Evelyn had asked if he had plans for the holiday. He had been evasive, sensing a possible invitation lurking behind her inquiry. Following the dictates of dreaded small talk, he had returned the question. Evelyn had said that she was going to stay at her apartment and reread A Christmas Carol. Impatient now, Benton went looking for Evelyn. As it turned out, she was gone from the building, but when he returned to his desk, he found a small, colorfully wrapped gift sitting on his desk. She must have waited for him to leave. Excuse me. She must have waited for him to leave his station so as to deliver it unseen. Following some hesitation, Benton took up the little box and carefully removed the wrapping from it, like a surgeon with his letter opener. Inside, tucked in a nest of soft, crinkled paper, he found a lovely blue glass paperweight in the shape of a bird. Mr. Benton smiled. I have brought the bones of a ghoul. The murals looked all the more ancient in candlelight. The pigments from some distant, dusty autumn, ground up and smeared in the darkness. These, those illustrated figures, not obliterated by stains, peered fixedly within their cloth interment, human and beast alike. They were brittle, as spare and encircling as the maples out in the snow. Benton's voice echoed and the cloth rippled, breezes like veins pressing out behind the shadowy figures that lurked in the mildew. Meager and impossible, the shape of a body took form between the wall and the cloth, the tapestry accommodating as if a membrane. With no sound to mark its progress, it slid along one wall, then the next, until it had fully gone around the chamber. An arm's length from Mr. Benton, the shape pressed out more eagerly, the contours of a face straining against the hoary cloth. Taking the penknife from his pocket, Mr. Benton stepped up to the wall. He cut a small hole in the spot where a mouth should have been. One by one, he fed the delicate white bones into the hole. Brittle wing bones, crooked claws, beak, neck, and the rest. The darkness behind the jagged little opening sucked them in, cold breath on Benton's fingers. He must have fallen asleep. Benton found himself in a strange place. He was in what appeared to be a dimly lit living room. There were two half-drunk mugs of chocolate, now gone cold, sitting on a coffee table in the glow of an evergreen scented candle. A slim book by Dickens sat on the cushion beside him. He vaguely remembered someone reading to him from it. Other memories, half-formed murmurs, hovered just out of reach. He wondered if he had actually placed a phone call following his visit to the House of Murals, or if the recollection was just the residue of a dream. There were other books as well. The small rooms were marked by stacks of them, The bookcase is crowded. Christmas songs were playing from a reproduction cathedral radio in the darkened kitchen, its cyclopean dial-light glowing orange. Benton walked quietly through the apartment. He didn't remember killing her, but there was Evelyn, wide-eyed, naked, plump, and pale, hanging from the curtain bar in the bathroom. She was hanging from her long auburn hair. Too bad, he thought. She seemed a nice enough creature. He had actually begun to like her. Still, there was no use in abandoning an opportunity. Perhaps the murals were tiring of birds. Mr. Benton opened his penknife and cut into the woman. His hand slipped inside her, as if into a greased glove, groping for bones. Maybe it's just me, but I think there's something wrong with that guy. The end. Everyone did not live happily ever after. So, let's see here. I don't know what kind of a person would write. Oh, hey, Scott. Just kidding. Let's see if I have time to read another one. Yeah, why not? Here's one. I think this will be the last one, but oh, what page was that? Yeah, Donna. Scott is an extremely talented writer. Everyone should immediately go get all of his books. Westerfield Ministration, page 23. There we go. Now I know what I'm doing. Thanks, Scott. All right. Westerfield Manifestation. One of my patients, a 50-year-old automobile mechanic, came to my office on May 1st, 1999 with an injury. Martin Keller's left forearm bore a curious disfigurement, reportedly the source of notable chronic pain. I examined the 3 black parallel lines, but failed to determine what had caused them. The damage was inconsistent with conventional burning, or even with chemical burns. The patient's explanation led me to believe that he was suffering from some form of mental disorder and had deliberately caused harm to himself. Keller claimed that he had traveled, by what means was not clear to him, to a primitive village in a place he called Westermead. There, he encountered a lady in a cloak, wearing a metal mask. The mask swung open and out sprang a flailing mass of black tendrils, which grasped at his arm before he fled. He suffered severe burning sensations on his arm. I referred the patient to a psychiatrist and a dermatologist and did not see him again. By the way, that's not over yet, but by the way, the first couple of paragraphs on this one, I'm reminded again, make me think of Thomas Ligotti's story. The following August, I attended a conference where a colleague mentioned a remarkable case he had witnessed in Japan during the summer of 1992. Alan. Yeah, Yeah, what Scott just said. The following August, I attended a conference where a colleague mentioned a remarkable case he had witnessed in Japan during the summer of 1992. A young man spontaneously acquired roof thatching skills and claimed that he bodily transported to a distant land called Westermead. He described the place in great detail, claiming that it was a massive island, a beautiful, mystical place of quaint villages and wild expanses. Technologically speaking, this distant land was comparable to our late 1600s. Mr. Musashi's doctor determined that he was suffering delusions and suggested that he seek therapy. The patient refused, but returned some weeks later. This time, Mr. Musashi, complained that a highwayman had fired a musket at him as he was transporting back into his home dimension. X-rays determined that there was indeed some kind of foreign mass embedded in the patient's right thigh. Surgery revealed this mass to be a small musket ball. There was no damage to suggest a point of entry. It was as if it had simply appeared there in the muscle. There have been 12 other cases that I am aware of. Most of the patients exhibited behavioral rather than physical symptoms. For instance, cooking foods native to this alleged Westermead. Recipes like finberry scones and treacle hooves, which is a form of molasses pastry. Others spoke in a Westermead accent, British sounding it seems, and sang songs about a North War and seasonal celebrations. One patient, believing that she had become a spell woman, conjured a localized rain shower over her condominium in Newport, Rhode Island. Interviews with the patients revealed that their excursions occurred sporadically, usually during quiet moments, and invariably when they were alone. None reported any episodes while driving automobiles, fortunately. All maintained that they were physically displaced and that their visits averaged in length between 10 minutes and 2 hours. The sensation of journeying to and from Westermead has been described as a feeling of fading, accompanied by confusion and tingling of the limbs. I conducted an experiment with Maxine Pryor, the patient from Rhode Island. I spent hours with her, waiting to observe her during one of her otherworldly visits. All attempts proved fruitless. She said that it would not happen when I was present, so I set up a video camera to monitor her over a period of weeks. Each night she would spend several hours in a reclining chair with the camera running. On the 22nd day, Ms. Pryor had a Westermead episode, but whether or not she physically dematerialized could not be determined. The camera taped only what appeared to be a blizzard, but when examined by audio-visual experts at Boston University, seemed to show a continuous slow-motion storm of apple blossom petals. This went on for close to 2 hours, and at one point on the tape, one could hear what sounded to be distant fiddle music and laughter. The one fatal case that I am aware of concerned a 44-year-old Mexican man who was detained by authorities as an illegal alien in Texas. The man spoke only Spanish until one night when he started describing a village called Brinkers Down on the River Sour, Westermead. He spoke eloquent English with a British accent, according to his jailers. The patient claimed that he was ill with the goat plague and soon fell into a coma. Several days later, the man woke from his coma, sprang from his bed, danced about maniacally, and proceeded to explode. The authorities theorized that the man must have been smuggling some drug-related chemicals, swallowed in balloons. The ensuing post-mortem, which was difficult due to the fractured state of the body, revealed no evidence to support that theory, but it did show findings of an undigested mushroom of an unknown species. I have found no common correlation between the patients. There seems to be no pattern in terms of rage, race, age, sex, socio-ecological background, or education. The only apparent link is the consistency of their experiences, i.e., their descriptions of the elusive Westermead. A small personal note. I have sampled a barley brew made from an old Thistlekeep, a town in the Westermead Midlands, I'm told, recipe. It is finer than any ale that this dimension has to offer. Reminds me a little bit of the Night Ocean in the sense that the protagonist is describing something that he doesn't understand, but he's on the outskirts of it. He's on the outside of it and trying to figure out if it's real or not, and if it is real, what is it? Um, it reminds me of the Night Ocean in that sense. So, which, if you don't know, it's a short story by R.H. Barlow and H.P. Lovecraft. So, Kelly says he needs to visit. They don't have Wi-Fi there, man. They do not have Wi-Fi. Right, Scott? All right. I'm going to go see if I can find something to eat. And you really should pick up that book and all of Scott's books, really. And if you enjoyed listening to the stories tonight, then you'll enjoy those. So anyway, thanks for spending part of your Tuesday night with me, guys, and see you on Thursday. Good night.